Happy Saturday! Happy Saturday, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, kings, queens. Happy Saturday, guys. I hope you guys are having as beautiful weather as we are. Come on in and go ahead and announce who you are, what your nonprofit is. Tell us how your Saturday's going, how the weather is, or you can answer our question that we have here. And guys, just so you know, we're going to be giving something away great at the end of this. Reggie's going to be introducing himself to you momentarily. But if you work with any type of individual, including yourself, I think this is for you guys. We're going to be talking about behavioral strengths and types, as well as communication strengths and types. So if you are a part of a family, if you're a part of a team, if you're wanting to find ways to develop yourself and to connect with others around you better, those that you serve, if you have a nonprofit or if you have a business, those who you serve as well through your services and products, then this information is going to be for you. So I'll let you guys come in. Answer this question for me. What systems or tips help you understand those around you? Is there a system that you already have in place that helps you to kind of identify and to flow better with those around you? If so, please leave your tips here. We're going to be sharing lots of tips today, but we also want to gather and be able to read the tips that you all have as well. Hello, Nana. How you doing today in sunny Florida? Hello, Helena. Happy Saturday. Helena from Maine Hope Center. She's incorporated, guys. That's going to be one of the things you'll need in order for you to get that prize at the end, guys. We're going to be offering something very special, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But for now, come on in, guys, and answer this question if you have one. I know one of the systems that I use that I might mention later on down the line is astrology. I'm really into studying astrology. It can be very complex. It's something I'm interested in and passionate about. But even with the interest and passion, I would say I don't know much about it. So, but I do utilize that. I do see what I do to simplify it is I get to know the astrology makeup of those closest to me and those around me. So my staff and things like that, I know that I have a lot of Capricorns around me, for an example. So I'll kind of study those parts. That's what simplifies it to me. But we're going to be actually discussing a way to simplify it even more, guys. It's so important for you to find ways for you to be able to develop yourself when it comes to connecting to those around you. That has been game changing for me. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, Reggie. Who are you? We'll go ahead and jump right in. Hello, DeMarco. Hello, Kathy. Kathy from Florida. Yes, say your state, guys, and we will shout you out here. And hello, DeMarco, Hope for Change. He's already incorporated, so he qualifies for what we're going to be talking about later on as well. But Reggie, go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone and tell us a little bit about your organization and what you do.
First of all, thanks for having me on. And my name is Reggie Butler. I'm a former college and professional athlete who has transitioned over into the corporate world and the nonprofit world. Along what I brought with me to those worlds was a strong understanding of myself, and I wanted to understand what were the strengths that have allowed me to accomplish some of the things I have. And I've always been someone who's meshed well with people, and I really worked on that, and hence we have my behavior and communication program that I help tons of businesses and athletes with.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned in that you've come to a point where you really understand yourself. How huge was that in your life journey, understanding your own personal traits and how you connect and the areas that you naturally tend to do better in?
It was everything.
Yeah.
It was absolutely everything. And when I say that, how it helped, it made me aware of my thinking. And once I became aware of my thinking and my normal behaviors, I learned to adjust when needed. I learned to be able to coexist with others. I learned to bring in others for help, and also how I could help others who, again, yes, from just even starting with sports, it allowed, I knew what I could do on the court per se, but it really gave me perspective of why I did what I did. So, that's translated on into the corporate world and business. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think for me, generally, now we guys, we'll talk about this a little bit later on. But we've had a couple of Reggie's services and they have been game changing for our company as well. To have some type of foundation that you can easily identify to when it comes to how you connect with others, that gives you a foundation to be able to grow from. Because the basis of his coaching is he lets you know where you are. And then he says, okay, what areas do you want to grow in? And then he gives tips on how you can grow in those areas. And that has been huge. It really has. It's given some type of language for me, especially like I said, when it came to astrology, it's a little difficult for me because I don't know much about it. All I know is about Aquarius. That's myself. Capricorns, that's my husband. You know what I mean? So that can be a little bit, and there's so much information in that area. And some people don't connect with that. Some people, depending upon their religious background or spiritual background, they don't connect with that at all anyway. So this was game changing for me to have some type of system to be able to have that foundation to develop. I'm all about self-development. So I'm all about how can I become better, and, in order for you to become better, you first have to have some type of language to utilize. So it's been huge, and I appreciate and I'm so excited and so appreciative that we were able to connect, to give that type of language there for us to be able to develop from. I would say that was like maybe the last 2 years that we've been working on.
Pretty much, yes.
Maybe
yes,
year and a half, 2 years. Absolutely.
And look how your growth has been, along that time.
Absolutely. It definitely has been. It's been amazing. And guys, momentarily, we're going to actually share my personal chart with the system that Reggie uses. And we'll go ahead and jump right into that now. Hello, Grand Rising, Gala. Kathy said, I don't have a nonprofit business, but she's interested. She'll be starting one here momentarily. But let's just jump right into the system that you particularly use. If you can give a little bit of background as far as that system is concerned and how it works.
Understood. So I have a system and a coaching program that it takes a snapshot per se. It doesn't put anyone in a box, but it takes a snapshot of how somebody currently prefers to communicate and also how they prefer to behave when they walk in a room. Mm-hmm. And when with my corporate clients, it helps them see what are their employees' work habits. With my nonprofit boards that I work with and a bunch of nonprofits I work with, it helps them identify each board member's individual superpowers. And I like to use the word superpowers as far as, this person naturally prefers to communicate and go about things this way. Mm-hmm. This other person prefers to naturally communicate and go about things that way. And what you'll find if you have a few people who prefer the same way, okay, who's willing to shift to cover these things that need to be covered? If you have the best case scenario is you have people who are all gifted in different areas. Okay, mm-hmm. Let's put them in those seats, and again, as a nonprofit with the goal to you're helping some lane of people in some way, we want to get that right. We want to become the best nonprofit we can. We want to make this as seamless as possible. Some people, tell me if I'm wrong, but are some of your clients who've come through you to set up, this isn't everyone's main thing, correct? Right. Some people are Absolutely. Doing this out of the love. So if you're going to do this and you've become structured enough to do this to help people, why not make it as seamless as possible?
Absolutely. And make sure that you're when it comes to the nonprofit world, you want to make sure that your services hit. Absolutely. You want to make sure you're actually able to move different types of people and you're able to impact. If you don't know anything, because what I found is without this information, it's almost like it reminds me a little bit of the 5 love languages in the relationship aspect. And one of the things that they hone on is when you don't know the different types of people around you and the languages that they operate in, your natural go-to is to operate with people in your own personal language. And it's like, okay, this is the language I know. This is how I'm going to communicate. But you're literally almost talking 2 completely different languages if this person is a completely different type.
You're
Does that
exactly
explain
right.
it kind of well?
That does, because if you think about it, you're trying to help someone and you see the help they need as one thing, they see it as another thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or even if you are on the same page with what they need help with, the way in which you're communicating that can absolutely be to a brick wall if you don't understand how they see the world, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
So it's besides internally with your own board, you need to know who you're serving, and you know what,
Absolutely.
how do they see the world? Because if you get that right, you can absolutely have people walking to you instead of you always trying to reach out and help people who might not understand your message.
Absolutely. That is 100% accurate. And one of the things that I remember stood out when we started your coaching program was you had mentioned, and even though I think I was telling you a little bit before the call that you said this, but it didn't really, it sunk in a little later down the line that there's no right or wrong when it comes to this awareness. It's more of an awareness. It's not, okay, now these personality types, these are the right ones, and I want to get there because that's right, or, you know, or this is wrong for me to be. It's about what are your personal preferences? What areas do you want to grow in? Because I remember as a kind of overachiever, graduated at 16, always
Right.
trying to work on myself and be the best. One of the biggest things I noticed that was like heavy for me, I thought about this the whole weekend after our first session, is that not only was I a low D, and we'll talk about that more later. I think this might be a good time for us to share my chart momentarily, but not only was I a low D, I realized that most of my team and the people around me was also low D's. And so I just went completely frantic, like, oh my goodness, I got to get up. I have nobody around me that's a high D. I have no idea what that language even looks like. It felt like a blind spot for me. And it was like, I need to get high. And I remember you mentioning like, no, you don't necessarily, that may not necessarily be your goal. Here are the descriptions of people who have that higher D. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my chart now so you can break down.
Okay.
So for those who don't know what we're talking about, they'll kind of get a clearer view. Guys, this is my specific chart that I'm about to open. This is like, was it 6 months between?
Yes, it was. It was a period of 6 months in between these. Yep.
There it is right there. And why don't you go ahead and let people know what they are looking at?
Okay, great. So what we're looking at is a snapshot of what you may see Tracy do, or how you may see her flow in a room when she walks in. So that's what it is. It doesn't describe who she is. It describes how she may prefer to be in certain, as far as communication, or as far as just say work behaviors. All right. And in saying this, before I describe this, it's not a thing where it puts Tracy into a box. It's a thing where it just describes how frequent or how she might prefer to be. It's being in a box might be looked at as a bad thing, but when you go to the store, I want to know what's in the package.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's if something's just there without a name on it, I don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a way for us to just put a little bit of verbiage to our behaviors and our communication, so we can adjust when needed to get whatever it is done that we're trying to get done.
Absolutely.
So what you'll have is at the top, you'll have Tracy's original behavior styles, and each category represents a different thing. Just going from left to right, you'll have that red category. We're just going to look at the colors for now. You'll have that red category that represents somebody's speed, somebody's preference in how they choose to approach problems and make decisions. So everyone in this world, there's 7.6 billion people on this world, on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has an ability to make a decision. Everyone makes thousands of decisions every day. And what this is a microcosm of is those who are higher in this category, they prefer to make decisions at a swifter pace. They prefer to approach a problem a little more directly. It might not sit well with them to leave things unresolved.
Mm-hmm.
Those who are lower, they prefer to approach a problem or a decision in a different manner And that could be a bunch of reasons. The coaching program will uncover what those reasons might be, because it can give perspective and adjust when needed. But those who are lower, they might prefer to get a little more information.
Mm-hmm.
They might just prefer not to be confrontational.
Mm-hmm.
There's 10 different things I could give, but overall, you at least get a snapshot and of how you typically approach problems or approach people when there's something wrong. And I don't want to only paint the picture that we're talking confrontation. We're talking so many things. A decision could be what kind of coffee you want. A decision could be what you're going to wear today. So there's so many aspects to that. And over the course of time, at the top, you see here that you were at a certain level, like naturally a 25 per se, which correlates to how you make decisions and approach problems, would be kind of conservative or inquisitive.
Mm-hmm.
More near conservative. And over the course of time, that was something I remember you mentioning, that at first you thought, oh, I need to be up here on the D, but no. It was just something where I think we came to the agreement that you might just want to be able to not spend so much time on a decision. You would rather make the decision and move on, because you had more aspects of your business you had to run.
Absolutely.
And so, yes. And so the combination of that, and also the combination as you were evolving as a business, who do I need to bring in? Who does this easily? Who does this naturally? Who is this easy? Who is this more natural for without stressing? Because as humans, if we continue to do things that are not natural for us, that's where stress comes in.
Yep.
So it was a situation where we worked on that, and through some of the tips, 6 months later, here you are, and again, this is a scale of speed. And so here you are, when you're approaching something or making a decision, you went from what would be conservative, you went up to inquisitive or responsible. And everyone can have their own definitions of what those words mean, but conservative might mean, even with the information, you might still delay. And inquisitive means just tell me a little bit of what I need to hear, and let's do it.
Absolutely. And I noticed one of the things, since we're on that D category, like you were saying, I remember one of the coaching tips, and that's what we'll talk about a little bit as well. But one of the coachings you had specifically for that D was to make less decisions, to create some type of systems and create some type of programs to streamline your decision-making process. And that was huge for me, just the awareness that I'm a natural, slow decision maker. So what I think about when I'm looking at time and I'm aware of time and we're making a decision right now, what I think about as a leader is, okay, how important is this decision? We need to just pause this one, or is this a decision that could be outsourced to someone? So like, for an example, you gave the example of, how you want your coffee or what you're wearing. And one of the things I've been doing for my appearance and what I wear and things like that has been streamlining that decision. I'm leaning more into a minimal category as far as just having basic pieces that I can go to that I know works for me in my career and in this virtual space. It's not as important as it used to be anymore. And the things that I'm comfortable in is simple, go to, so I don't want to use my decision-making power and energy, so to speak, superpower, something that's not naturally easy for me. So something I have to kind of energize and bring a lot of my energy to. I don't want to use that on what I'm wearing today. That's just, I don't want to use that on hairstyle. I don't want to use that on my coffee. I want to know that this is how I like my coffee. Here's a system. You can immediately go to this Trello board, or I could tell you just what I don't want, and you can make that decision if someone else is making the decision around me. So that was huge for me, just being aware that I'm naturally a slow person. And what those things are beneficial for and what those things are not beneficial for. Like, come on, y'all. We talking about what we having for dinner. We need to streamline this, so we're not going to spend an hour on this decision, because things like that, people may think that that's minute, but it's not if you're wanting to develop yourself. Because decisions such as what you're having for dinner, that's not minute at all. You have to make that decision every single day. You have to eat, you know what I mean? And so that's something that can be life changing for you if you're someone who normally spends a lot of energy there creating a meal plan or having that outsourced or something like that, or getting one of those meal companies that bring stuff in, you know what I mean? So so I definitely don't think that those are minute things or a minute area for you to increase in.
Absolutely. And an example of that is the average human makes over 10,000 decisions a day.
Ooh.
And the average human makes over 10,000 decisions a day. And if you look at someone like, rest in peace, Steve Jobs from Apple, every time you saw him, he had a black sweater on and jeans. He said that his decisions were so monetary that he didn't want to waste any money on those decisions like that. So yes. That's an example. And of course we could start to talk about business and things like that when you're on time frames and everything, and you have to decide, what are we going to go with? Are we going to go in this direction or that direction? And it's just really good to see what's natural to you, where you can adjust when needed. And over the course of time, you'll see here you adjusted. And what this gray column represents is an adaptive. There's some environment that so when I say everyone can do everything, there's some environment that we do adapt, meaning we do speed up, slow down. So there's some environment that before you would speed up and, make decisions in, but what you did was, it looks like you got control of your environment. Sometimes that environment that I'm speaking about, I don't know if it's at home, at work, if it's with the kids, I don't know what environment that may be for each person, but if you can control your adaptive in that environment, I consider you a master. I consider, so that means, I might be a naturally slow decision making person, but I can speed up when needed and this and that. So it looks like you absolutely gain control of everything, because I don't know when we do know from personally coaching, but overall, I don't know when you used to speed up. Was that stress for you?
And I'll give you a little feedback on that specifically, like with you mentioning that. I think that this had a lot to do, because I know the last one was in January, and I think the one was before that. So this is all during the pandemic as well. And what I noticed for myself specifically is that when it comes to being in environments with other people, I'm naturally kind of an introvert. And so I enjoy doing things virtually like this, because it gives me the opportunity to connect with more people with a less amount of energy kind of coming in. So like Starbucks, meeting with the clients at Starbucks and in those different areas, that would naturally drain me and make my decision-making process almost muffled to be around a whole lot of people and a whole lot of consistently. So I was able to balance that just because of what has taken place. We've been more and more quarantine and contained environments. And I just find that the more people that are in my physical environment, the less I am like my natural self, because of my high kind of I and S. I'm now focused on too many different things, because I'm wondering, okay, are they comfortable? Are they, because that's my natural environment to think about what's all going on. So the more pieces you include in that, the least effective I am. And so Absolutely. I think that kind of answers that question, because that environment with lots of people has gone down for everyone,
Yes, that makes sense. And you also, just as we move into the next column, you mentioned something important. You mentioned how you would be concerned with, is everyone okay?
Yeah.
How is everyone doing? Is everyone good? Moving into the next column is someone's preference for how they choose to interact with people and share their opinions. So those who are higher, they probably prefer to either interact with people, or they prefer to share their opinion, but they're also someone who, and interaction means different things, because here you are, maybe you don't prefer to be around a lot of people at Starbucks. You might prefer this platform to interact. So it doesn't mean you have to be right next to someone. It just means you would prefer to communicate and share your message, share your opinion with people, but also those who are higher, if you look sociable, enthusiastic, they care about how others are doing.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely care about someone else's experience. So here you are, and you just said it. It's interesting. You want to make sure everyone was okay, that everyone was all right. Well, that's not and it doesn't mean you're mean, but that's not everyone's natural inclination to worry about how others are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Some are worried about naturally what they are doing and what they have to accomplish. And we'll go through that, more so as people are picking their board members, you can start to see who is someone who is more interactive, who is someone who genuinely is, and I use the word genuinely as naturally, who is someone who's naturally catering to people, because that's who you want speaking on your behalf. It doesn't, someone who's a CEO, they can be great at the task they accomplish, but if their first inclination isn't to naturally worry about how someone's doing or want to interact with people, then they might not be the first person who needs to speak on behalf of your company. They might need to be the person who's speaking on your lives or your videos or your virtual marketing. You need to be sure who's comfortable engaging with people, no matter whether it's in person or virtually. So there you are. And as your original behaviors or results indicated that you were, so yours pretty much stayed the same. They raised your adaptive raised slightly, which we had to find out which environment were you communicating more in, which environment were you kind of sharing your opinion more in. Those who are lower, they might be what's considered high introverts. And when I say high introverts, if you're lower in this, you're more matter of fact, more reserved, more reflective. You probably not the first person to speak or make somebody feel approachable, your persona, because here's the second part of all of this. Besides how we are in our own world, there's 7.6 billion people. How do people perceive you?
Yeah.
So, it's interesting. You mentioned that you are an introvert, correct?
I feel like there's something, what is that, an omnivert?
Where they're ambivert, where you're both.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you are the definition of that. But we see you as someone very approachable. So here you are, you're up here as enthusiastic, sociable. So inside you feel this, that you have your times, absolutely, where you would rather, hey, I'll just talk to you all through virtually. I don't want to go to meet at Starbucks. But your enthusiasm and your energy, we see you as somebody we can always approach. And you tell me, or you tell everyone here, and those maybe who can relate to you, how many calls do you get? How long do people keep you on the phone? How many questions do people ask you? So and that's where the stress comes in.
Yeah.
Because you feel one way, but people see you another way. Right here again, enthusiastic, sociable, how you go about things. We see you as someone so approachable, and we want all your time.
That is absolutely true. And one thing that I've found has been beneficial in that area is I've realized that, the areas that I'm more of a high I in are the things that I'm passionate about. I know who I serve. So we'll get into the S momentarily. But I'm all about creation and you creating your own team, your own programs, your own systems to be able to accomplish whatever impact you have. And so what I've kind of been, I think, strategically and consciously doing is showing up at my highest I level for the things that are most important to my company. And then on the family side, I'm typically extremely high I when I know I can cut everything else off and it's just about family, friends, connecting. But at the same time, that's also typically very microscopic for me personally, and people would think the opposite. Like my husband has tons of relationships and personal relationships and things like that, but my thing is I have that microscopic physical, personal relationships, into more intimate relationships. But for those relationships, I'm all the way I and all the way in on. Does that make sense?
It does. And who's the first person we see when when as you helped me set my nonprofit up, I used your services. You were the first person I saw online, and therefore I hit deposit. I cashed out. I mean, it absolutely matters who's speaking on your behalf and are they comfortable with it.
Absolutely.
It was based off how I saw things. I'm a person of questions per se. So when I saw the original advertisement a few years ago, just as far as we can help you set up, we can help you do this and that. I thought that was someone. I thought that you were someone who I'd be approached because I know I'm gonna ask some more questions. But someone who is just telling me how easy it is, and all you have to do, people, who are higher in this, they're task oriented. They sometimes come off a little pushy, and it's nothing wrong with that because they get a lot done. They're very successful people, but I don't naturally gravitate to purchasing from them because I know that they're going to expect me to go at a faster pace than what I'm normally okay with. So again, it's how you naturally are for your own success, what kind of board members you need, and also how people perceive you.
Absolutely. That's so important. Like you said, that perception, that's where we talk about the awareness, because I think that without a system of really realizing, I mean, if you live long enough, most people realize that there are different types of people, and they did some type of system, however that system might be. They've done some type of system in their head to kind of help to identify. Of course, knowing that we can also fluctuate and control the categories and adjust as well. But there are natural types of people. But I think one thing that's really important that you talked about in our coaching is it's so important to figure out where people are naturally. Where they are naturally, and as opposed to, okay, this is the right or wrong. Now that I know that they've identified as this level of an S or a D or an I, what's the best type of environment or job that they can align with, that they're going to be able to show up in an easy, unstressed way, exactly who they are and fulfill those duties. So I thought that was huge as well. It's not a right or wrong. We'll go back to that high S and that D level or whatnot, the higher Ds. What I've noticed client-wise is that the higher Ds kind of give a little bit of friction when it comes to the systems that we have created that has enabled us to be able to serve over 4,000 clients. They want to get it done right now. They don't want to wait on a call. They don't want to wait on so it's so important for you to identify products and services that would fit with that. So we have self-paced, for example, tutorials where someone can go through it. They can go through that entire video tutorial or course in one day if they want to, or in a couple of days, and go at their pace. But I've just noticed when it comes to anything beyond that, they get frustrated with the pace. But the pace is important for what we do because these are legal documents. These are the documents that your organization is going to be built upon. I had to come to what word would I use? Kind of come to an agreement and come to a happy medium with my pace of knowing that, you know what, this pace is okay for the services that you provide. And, and you need to have this certain amount. You don't want to make too fast decisions in this area because now this person wants to change their board and we've already made that decision, or they want to change their mission 2 weeks from now. We need to make sure we slow down and they make sure they understand what each of these steps mean. That's important. So if their pace is at a different way, how can we serve them in another way? Because they're going to be frustrated with this pace. So we're not going to offer them these services. So that's been definitely beneficial for us as a team.
Absolutely. That's the best example you gave where with the client who was looking to kind of buzz through things, and you know what, I'm going to set these online videos and up and you could take those. And when you're done with those, then I'll answer your questions, or else they're going to constantly be asking you what's next, and they haven't. And maybe they've gone through maybe they've gone through what needs to go through, but they haven't retained so much. They're just trying to get done because they get a lot done. I mean, those high Ds are very, very, very results people, and that's okay, and that's great. We need them.
Yeah.
We absolutely need them. But again, as your nonprofit champions are listening, I like for them to think about what are their best strengths. What is the pace that they go about things? What's comfortable for them? Because that right there tells you what you need to add.
Absolutely.
So as we continue forward, we will go into what's your most frequent behavior. I don't like to say high or low per se. We'll go, this green column, what this represents is someone's natural pace, someone's preference for pace. Those who are higher, they would prefer a more steady pace. And it doesn't mean that they're slow per se. We're not talking about running, sprinting, and walking or crawling. We're talking about consistency, stable environments, harmony, cohesion. If you think about all of these words, complacent, now that has a certain definition. It doesn't mean a bad thing, but everything's not showing on here. But the higher words are stable, and things like that. That's on the graph I sent. So you wouldn't be able to get it higher. But yep. So you have those who are higher. The words associated with it are stable, consistent. You just have those people would prefer things to be a certain way. They like the process of something. And that means a different thing to each person, but they would rather not have things come in every day and they don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
They're probably not the first people to change up something. And so those who are lower, look at the words associated with it. They're a little more chaotic, active, restless, as far as they might not like things to stay the same. So me personally, this is my highest as well. And with that, I'm always looking for comfortability, for stability. I'm always looking to do whatever's needed to chill. So I want to set my business up so I can chill. My wife and I joke all the time. If I ever hit the lotto, I think I will go take a nap. And then we'll wake up and celebrate. And she, on the other end, is high in this. And she's like, we're getting on a plane. And so, I mean, it's interesting, so as your nonprofit champions who are listening, they can see their own pace of things. If they're lower in this, then you need someone on your board who's going to take their time.
Yeah.
Or else because as you said, the nonprofit world is all about the paperwork. And if you don't have the paperwork right, you're not a nonprofit. And so you have to have your time and, take your time and have your due diligence, look at things from another perspective. For example, with you, it's a thing where your natural is much more frequent than your adaptive. And I'm not going to say it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but it's something over the course of the program that we looked at to see if this is a gift, meaning you are in control of your speed up, or is it some environment where I don't have no control, so naturally I'm like this. So again, that's for each person to know, because if there is a big difference like this is a complete different human being. It really is, someone who's up there at the highest at 99 and just moves at a slower pace and would rather have so much harmony and consistency, and someone who drops down to, restless and again, outgoing does. And then these are just word verbiages. You can make your own definitions of them. Outgoing is not a bad thing, but someone who outgoing is just, they would rather go out and or be first. People who are higher in this are typically looked at as very supportive people, very loyal people, very helpful people, but that's not always the case. The reason that they're looked at that is because they just don't go first. So if you think about it, if you're not going first, someone else is.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you doing? Supporting.
Mm-hmm.
It just flat out. If you don't do it first, someone else will. So again, think about a team. Imagine a team that has someone who's driving and demanding. Imagine a team has someone who's and demanding means several things. Demanding doesn't have to mean mean. Demanding could just mean they continue on their goals no matter how they feel.
Right.
Yes, and someone who's high in this, who likes to, speak and communicate and share their opinion about what they're doing. Someone who's has this ability to work at a certain pace, and bring things together.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about the last thing, but you need all of these. All of these are keys to different doors. And when we're talking about people, they're all people who are needed to make something happen, or at least someone needs to be able to flow through all of them.
Exactly. At least someone needs to be aware. And I think for me, giving a little feedback on the S, for me, I've realized that with the work that I do, that is a gifting, that is a superpower. So it's literally a dial that I turn all the way up when it's time to go, and it's time to turn on and do the thing that you do best. And literally, because I turn it all the way up like that, in my rest and relaxation mode, and when I'm when I go to that rest mode, it completely goes to out the door. I don't want to do the thing that I do. I want to do, just something totally different. I don't want to think about systems. I have to automatically put that whole processing down, the way that I do my day throughout the week down, and switch over to that weekend or that a completely different mode, which, like you said, is more outgoing and just connecting and refreshing and kind of turning it off. So I think I see that in that green and gray, like where it's literally something that I have control of to either turn on when it needs to be turned on or turn all the way off because it now needs to refuel,
I call that living.
Call that living.
To me, that's living. That's living. That means you are a master of your environments.
Mm-hmm.
And and also if you're someone who's around people, as if it's benefiting them as well, they love having you around no matter what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
They I just really think that that's living. My personal view is it's hard to live without control of what's going on.
Yeah.
And so the example you just gave is the perfect example of that. Is you're in control and you're aware of what needs to be done to get something done, depending on who you're with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another little feedback I will give for high S, if you are high S or you have people around you that are high S, one of the little going jokes around our house is my processing time. Because they're constantly processing information, making sure the process is going smooth, making sure everything's going, like, it'll be a basic question that'll be asked verbally, like, so what do you think about that show yesterday or something? There'll literally be 10 minutes, and then I'll be like, so what I think is, they'll be like, you're processing. Oh my goodness. Like, because even though it may look like I'm not processing, there are constantly things that are going on that we're making sure are in place so that things can run smoothly. And so that whatever it is, typically, I'm assuming that anybody who's a high S, they have a job that's in that managerial type system creation type space, hopefully, because that's the area that they do the best. And so I'm constantly that's how my mind is working. It's a movie, it's a show. What is that movie called where they show the behind the mind? I think we might have talked about this on our last.
Yes. Oh, gee.
Yeah.
My mind, but absolutely. That's a great example.
That's a great example. And just everyone has all of these working pieces going on. You're talking to their flesh, but they all have these working pieces and these individuals who have higher roles. Maybe the D or the I who have higher roles, and some of the individuals who may not have as high roles, or who just may be acting in a different way at different times, depending upon the environment. So this kind of gives a little bit more visual. That movie gave a visual, and this gives more a visual as to why people behave the way they behave, and most importantly, which is the kind of most important thing for a high S, is how can you cooperate and be able to harmonize all of these different personality types to create whatever impact you may be creating as a nonprofit, or as a business, or as a family.
You're absolutely right. And honestly, you are naturally gifted at that as far as how yours adjusts, because one thing with those who are high S's, and I'm one of those and you're one of those, is we search for consistency and stability so much and want time so much. We make great managers, but to the outside world, we might not. Those high D's are looked at as great managers. So imagine if you have 10 people and somebody asks them, where do you want to go eat? The first person who's going to make a decision whether it is naturally a D. They're just going to say it. And consistently, if someone always speaks first, if someone always stands up first, what are they looked at as?
Bossy, pushy.
A leader. Or pushy, bossy, or a leader again. So a high S who takes time to process, depending on who's looking, might not be looked at as a leader because they,
that's hilarious. Because that was just an example how I just answered. For as a high S, I see them as bossy.
Exactly. That was your perspective. Yes.
That was interesting. And a leader. Oh yeah, that too.
Exactly. So those, and so that's interesting you said that. So the CEOs I coach who are high Ds, I make them aware of how their gifts of getting results and driving the company forward look to everyone who works for them. You understand that? So they're great for the company and the numbers, because they're driving and they're always focused on the tasks, and certain emotional things don't throw them off task.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they don't work by themselves, and they don't work for themselves. People work for them or report to them and things like that. So imagine on a board, if you have a high D, that is great. It's a wonderful asset because they're going to help you stay on course. They're going to be driving that bus.
Yeah.
But everybody, how are they? So if they're going over a lot of bumps and it's raining and certain people think they should pull over, they might not pull over because they feel they can get us there. But everybody else is scared to death on the back of the bus.
So then it's more of a matter of as a high S, how can you correlate? I remember a video you showed us as well when we were doing our team management, another video, cartoon or whatnot, but how can you correlate this high D to be able to do their best in their most gifted areas, and then also help to aid to be able to make sure you're creating that support and you're giving them the feedback and the things that they need to make good decisions. But what I'm hearing you say, which is so important, is that if you are a high D, the comfortability and the giftingness of just being able to make a decision in itself is a superpower, which is so true.
It is absolutely it's a strength, because the rest of us don't make decisions at such a speedy pace because there are other factors we consider. The high I, the yellow column, they make decisions fast, but they make decisions off how they feel. And think about this. If there are other people in the environment, you said it yourself, you were concerned with helping people have a good experience. If it's a decision to be made that you feel might not give everybody a good experience, you might not make that decision.
Exactly.
And with the S's, with our goal for stability, sometimes we don't express what we feel. We hold it in. Where I call us S's, sometimes it's a gift of pace to be patient, but sometimes I call us silent sufferers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we don't express what we did. Because if we do express what we felt, it might create chaos and instability, and we know who else is in our environment. This person might be offended. This D, high D, who's getting results might say, "What? That's the stupidest idea I ever heard." So I mean, it's so you need to know. And once again, and we'll go over this last one, but in an environment, as people speak what's in their mind and speak up and give their perspective, it's really important that everybody knows where everybody's coming from.
Absolutely. And I just personally think, and as a fellow high S, I don't know if we're being biased, but I just personally think if you can, I think that whether you're talking about this particular way to rate, and we've talked about that there are many ways for you to categorize personalities and things like that. But the most important thing is coming from a place of awareness and personal development as opposed to how I can adjust and try to change or try to create, make this D now a S, make this.
Absolutely
So
not.
many people come from that place when there's a lack of knowledge. They come from, oh, okay, I don't know anything about the way that you're moving right now. So this must be bad because I'd rather be in my comfort zone of the way that I move and the way that I flow. And so that's absolutely important for you to realize that there are gifts and there are challenges in every aspect. You mentioned about the high S, they can be silent sufferers. For me, I guess that goes back to me classifying myself as an omni or invert or introvert. I would rather just shut the door. Let's go home. I'd rather instead of saying something like, you know what, they are acting. Let me go. But I've had to kind of overcome that because sometimes confrontation. I would say they're low confrontation, but sometimes confrontation can be a good thing if you're with the people who you can communicate with and learn from. And so sometimes you saying, no, we're not going to eat that. Everybody don't want to eat that. You're the only one that want to go to the steakhouse. Okay. So let's just stop for a minute, you know? So, and you may have to be that peacemaker or that harmony maker, and that also aligns with myself as an Aquarius as well. But it's just so important for you to realize that, you know, when you can really start to assist people in being able to be their best self they can be, whichever way they flow amongst these levels, that's when I feel like we really start to make impact, and like you said, really start to start that living process.
That you hit that nail on the head. And as we move into this last one, the last piece of the puzzle, this is the piece this is the quote unquote brains behind everything. So this C column, people who are high, this judges someone's preference for how aware are they of the rules on the wall, per se. You know, it's the person, this is a scale of caution. The person who is higher in this is absolutely aware of the rules in a given environment. The person who's aware of this is naturally, when I say a cautious person, it doesn't mean they're scary, but they're naturally aware of what's the downfall to it. They look for it by nature. People who are lower in this, do they know the rules are on the wall? Yes, but they have their own set of rules they might go by.
As well.
They're a little more risk takers by nature. And it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It doesn't mean that the person who's high is a good person or a scary person. It's just how they see the world. And so this person here is, you need them because they have a few natural capabilities. They're very observant. By nature, they want to know all of the information. So if someone is taking notes, if your team is somewhere and someone needs to take notes, let this person take notes. Because that high I can't take many notes because they're talking. They want to talk. They're waiting to talk. You know, they're waiting to speak. That green might be okay at taking notes, but they want to. If you ask them, put it like this: if you ask them, they'll absolutely do it. But this I right here, this C right here. They are very observant because they want more information. Why do they want more information? Because they want to get it right. Those who are really high are perfectionists. And so they want all of the information because they don't want to do it until they have the information and can get it right. Those who are low in this, they're just want to get it done. And if it's right or not, maybe they'll do it again, but they move at a faster pace, those who are lower. So what, every team needs this, because if you have any procedures to write or follow, if you think of everyone's perspective, that D, if you have a D write the company's procedures, imagine how those might be.
Right.
If you have an I write the company's procedures, they're going to be leaned towards openness, of, let us interact. And even if, they might not be too stringent. And S, they're very slower paced. They might not be forward thinking, procedures. But this C right here, it's not going to be any emotion to it. It's going to be what it is. So this is probably the even though they'll have a lot of questions for you, this is probably the person who's most obedient as you're helping them start their nonprofits, because they're going to do exactly what you tell them to do, exactly what the procedure is. They're going to follow it to a T. Why? Because they get they're observant of the rules on the wall per se by nature. Why? Because they don't want to get it wrong. So they're going to take as much time as needed. So these are your kind of Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett's, and your information gatherers.
I would definitely say this is the one I see the most examples of when it comes to the nonprofit area. Like sometimes I'll talk to someone and they'll just be like, far as their board members are concerned, or far as their mission statement, okay, here it is. Yep, just throw them. That's my cousin, and throw them on the board. Just really quick, like the kind of just getting it done so much to where you're not paying attention to the point where it can be really messy and you have to go back and fix things. That old saying goes well with this one of, do it right the first time, the old grandma statement, so you don't have to go back and do it again. But then also, it's so important. That balance is so important when you're creating something and you're creating something from scratch, because also I've seen the high seas in this area to where they question themselves out of, we just finished the mission statement. That process was 4 months long in itself, and all right, one day we're going to get this going. And when we do, hopefully there'll still be room to impact, you know what I mean? Or hopefully things haven't changed or whatnot. So I think balance in that area when it comes to creating a nonprofit or business is so important. And I could definitely see the benefits of having someone in the right job who is higher in that area, and definitely not in that job who's lower in that area.
Absolutely. Because they're going to be worried about what needs to be done, the procedure. So the D wants to get it done, but they'll do anything in any order to get it done. But this C, if you put it like this, this C, they won't let you skip any steps. It drives them crazy. It drives them crazy. But on the other hand, you need some D's and some I's to get them to speed up a little bit, because they won't make a decision. They'll continue to get it exactly right. But sometimes you do need to move forward as far as you can see, and then move forward again. With the C, they don't move forward as far as they can see. They move forward as far as their leg will take them. Their next step takes them. They want everything and all information. So again, as people are building, your viewers are building their boards and finding out who's the right fit. If you, like you said, I want my cousin on the board, I want this or that. But if you truly seek out, first you should look for experience. Experience of what you look for. I don't tell people the experience that they need. They know their own industries. But once they found a group of people with the experience needed, I help them with finding the people who naturally cover areas that they don't.
Gotcha. So, again, naturally create that balance. And that's one of the things that I love about the nonprofit world, is that you're made up initially of board members. So what that automatically does in business, sometimes you have partners, but a lot of times I see a lot more solopreneurs when it comes to business. They're going to create this business, and that's fine. But there's something that I just really love about the creation of a nonprofit, that it starts with joint energy to begin, because you're creating something, in my opinion, that can serve a lot more people, because you have all of these different personality traits that are there on the board. The more mixed, the better. The more, like you said, balancing and making sure you have a balance, the better, because you're going to create a product or a service that's going to be of most benefit, because you're not just talking about the things that you're good at. You're talking about something that can connect with people of all backgrounds. So
absolutely. That's the 100% key. It's everyone has this plan and they have something they want to do, but there's people involved at the other end. So even if it's something automated or electronic you're doing, there's someone who's going to receive that.
Absolutely.
How do they receive that? And if you can get it right as far as talking their language and how they see it. So if you can get your board right, first of all, with people who cover different things and cover each other's blind spots, then whatever service or product will also be encompassed to different kind of people.
Absolutely. Gotcha. And if you guys, so as we're wrapping up here, Reggie's going to be doing something specifically special for one nonprofit organization or business. You have to already be incorporated. So I did see a couple of you all commenting here. I know Helena Garrett is incorporated. You have to be watching live. So if you're watching live and you didn't get this component, I talked a little bit about it at the very beginning. But if you're watching live right now and you're incorporated, go ahead and comment in here. So that way I know that you're watching live right now and say, hey, I am incorporated. I have my nonprofit. And if you are incorporated, more than likely you have a board already, which means that gives an opportunity for you to use this information on multiple bases. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing for one of our organizations that we'll select over the next week here.
Absolutely. So what I like to do is I like to provide a complimentary board assessment as far as where, exactly. As far as to where your board members can all take the assessment. It's non-invasive. I wouldn't know, it's not something that identifies your heritage or any trauma in your life or, anything like that. It's just something that identifies your preferences. And so you would all take an assessment and then I would line your results up and show you how your board naturally interacts with each other, where you now have the information that you can make any given adjustments. So this is something that's something highly valuable and a first step to all of the clients of mine. I work with Fortune 500 companies. I work with professional sports teams, again, as their coaches staffs want to align. And then they also want to know about their players. And this is also something I work with a lot of nonprofits and entrepreneurs on. So I'm providing them a complimentary board assessment to people who are enrolled in your program and live viewers.
Awesome. And I'm trying to put that up here on the screen, but we're having some technical difficulties over here. But I think I put it in the comments. I'll have my marketing team come and take a look at it, guys. Okay. But if you happen to be watching this via recording or you're not incorporated and you still want those services, maybe you're not even set up as a nonprofit or a business yet, and you just want to know how you can improve yourself and show up more to maybe a company that you're working for right now or for your family. We'll also have his links as well in there for you to be able to reach out and see how you can get those services in another format. But again, for those of you watching and who has identified yourself as incorporated, we will send one of you all a message and let you know who was able to obtain that. So that's going to be amazing, and we definitely really appreciate you doing that for us.
Oh, no problem. I would love to help. It's going to give them so much clarity. They already have an idea. People know people, but it would. I
can't see them. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm having technical difficulties. I can't see the comments. Can you go ahead and read them for me? I don't know what StreamYard is doing today, but we're going to hear my lovely sister's voice.
Sure, absolutely. One of the questions is, what changes or insights has the program brought to your company, Tracy?
Oh, okay, definitely. That's a very good question. The biggest insights it's brought to me is an awareness. The biggest area that I immediately saw, I'm really big on focusing on one thing at a time. And my main focus when I initially got that assessment was the fact that how much being a low D and being around low Ds was affecting our impact as a company. So that was my biggest area that I talked to Coach Reggie about adjusting. I was like, I want to adjust that area. What are some tips that you can give? And he talked about really sinking into some of those automated systems and things that I can do to have less decisions that I have to make personally, which has been huge for me. So it's like, okay, is this really that important of a decision? Is there something I could do far as that are considered minute in my field? And these might be different in your field. If you're a beauty blogger or something like that, the first things that I went down to my newt was I'm all about natural and minimalism when it comes to appearance and things like that. I'm a little quirky and earthy and maybe a little bit hippie when it comes to that area. So that's the area that I can loosen a little bit for me. That's not my area that I'm gifted in or that I'm coaching in, or it doesn't link and relate as much to my business. So there was a lot of automated process that I put into place when it comes to that, because I wanted to be able to put as much energy into the thing that I do well as I could. And so that was the biggest change, was realizing that area of D and how can I strengthen that area. And a big piece was, who can I put around me Another thing I did for my personal company was we created some FAQs. We created some systems that were in place that made less decisions come to me. So there's a filter process where if someone reaches out to me for a service we don't provide, I never am made aware of that because it's a service that we don't provide and I don't want to be. I've set up a system where I don't need to be made aware of that because that means that that's taking away from energy and decision making and conversation that I can be putting into the areas that we were called to serve in. So creating those systems has been game changing for me when it comes to that decision. And just being, like I said, being aware, like, okay, naturally you're going to take some time to make these decisions. So I can normally just kind of immediately, I remember one time in live, we were talking about music and we're always trying to make sure we're up to beat, up to breast, should I say, on what the music copyright art is. And we don't want to put all this energy and things into a live or into some, into a project for it to then get knocked down or copyrighted where we would have to pull it down. And so one day we were trying to figure out and look up something right before live. And I was like, wait, we need to just delay that decision or we need to outsource this decision. So just being aware and being able to kind of pause in the moment of realizing I'm putting a lot of energy into a decision that's either not that important or someone else is more qualified to make, let me go ahead and do that. So I would say that would be the biggest impact.
We have Harlan Hall. He said that the assessment woke him up. And then he also stated, imagine being interviewed with this assessment, your company would have a solid foundation.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. So he's had that assessment before and was just saying it woke him up as well. I know several people. Also, guys, I know you have had, you've heard from Natalie before. She's come on and a couple of times. You guys can go through the videos and see her video. She also talked about the assessment and how huge it was for her as well. What would you say? How would you answer that question too, Reggie?
So I have, I left out, I have helped several people get positions with this assessment, meaning, there's a few high level people who are looking for promotions per se. So it's also helped myself, and I'll explain that. But there's a few people who are going into interviews. Just recently this week, there was someone who was going in for a superintendent job. So obviously you were going to interview in front of a school board with 8 people. And what we worked on was who those 8 people, how they might see the world. So obviously they're educators, but we worked on individually how he could read, how they might see the world. And we worked on him himself being able to speak about his strengths and compare and how those will relate with what they wanted to get done. And so we did a review of his natural strengths. And, or for example, someone a few months ago who was going for a vice president position, he had never managed before. And he was a low D. Mm-hmm. And again, how does the world see those Ds? How does the world see people who tell people what to do? They see them as leaders. He had never done that. So in flip side, what we did was we dug in with his strengths. He's a high C. And so we talked about how he can lead with his information. So if he's always knowledgeable of something, he can lead with information as opposed to a D who leads with voice and task and sternness. And they lead with energy. And S leads with pace. So again, we, with those who are going for interviews and things like that, I always dig in their superpowers. I don't worry about what you can't do. We put a mirror in your blind spot with what you can't do, because if you do get the position, I want you to hire.
Yeah.
I want you to hire someone to cover what you can't do. But a lot of times people spend more time on their weakness than they do their strength.
That's, oh my goodness. That is a point and a nugget in itself. I would definitely also, the first thing I thought about when you said that was even with children, how we sometimes if we see that they're weak in one area, whether that be reading or whether that be athletics, things like that. Sometimes we start to hone in on that as well. Like we really need to adjust this or that, not realizing, wow, this kid I swear they're leading. There's this 3-year-old is leading this group like they know where they're going or something. Like, let them go ahead, do your thing, lead the room. Let me support that superpower that you have, because if you can hone that in and do that in the best way, that's going to be huge for you as a leader growing up. You know what I mean? I've seen some kids like that where it's like, you are really leading for you to, not have that many years on this earth. It seems like you just have that natural leadership capability. So I think that's so important for us to hone in on those gifts and say, okay, this is a gift and this is really going to be able to serve someone. So how can I, number one, be able to balance all the other areas so I can show up for this gift as much as possible? And number two, how can I make sure that I'm coming across in a way where this gift can be impactful, because I'm aware that everybody doesn't operate the way that I operate. There's other operating systems out here on the earth as well.
Absolutely. If I could give everybody a nugget, there was a position a few years ago that I was up for, and the person previously in the position was very high energy and very direct. And being someone who's one of the youngest African American males who's had this position in the top 3 hotel companies, well, my second go round, the person, as I mentioned, the person was very direct, very high energy. They specifically asked me, they said, "You're not like her. How do you think, what makes you think you could do this?" Because I was aware of myself, I said, I can do this because I'm not like her. I am a 6'9" African American male. If I was like her and I was in client's face like that, how do you think that they would receive that? I would probably scare everyone off. But because of how I am, I'm an introspective person. I am a person who builds a relationship first. How do you think that they'll receive that from me? And they were blown away, and I got the position. And I mean, just because I could visualize and didn't worry about what I wasn't, because I could have went and defended what I wasn't, and and lied and how I'm like her and I can do that. But no, I said I am absolutely not like her. But this is what I am like, and this is how I use this.
Absolutely. That's huge. That is huge in itself. And again, you focusing in on your gifts and how this is how I am, and these are the benefits that where I am right now has to your company or to whatever conversation you're having. That's huge. Absolutely.
And then Harlan Hall. This is Harlan Hall. I'm not sure if Reggie knows him. Or you, Harlan Hall?
Harlan Hall. Tell me a little bit about your nonprofit if you already have one, Harlan Hall, or your business.
He said, "This is fantastic. Thanks, Tracy and Reggie."
Oh, no problem. Thanks and welcome. I think this may be one of the first times I've seen you watching here, so we definitely appreciate it. Absolutely. Did we get all of those there? All right. Well, thank you guys. Sorry for that tech difficulty. Normally I can see all the comments here. I don't know if something has changed, but that's all part of the process as well. Sometimes just being able to flow,
There it is.
So again, guys, I know we went a little bit over, but we will have Reggie's information here in the description if you're watching on YouTube, and in the comments momentarily if you're watching on Facebook. We'll have all his information for you to be able to reach out to him as well, guys. Any other things that you want to leave us with, Reggie?
That's it. I'd like to thank you for having me on. Thank everyone for watching. Continue to search for how you are. Continue to try to identify that, because things change. We're in a pandemic. How we were a few years ago, we need to take a snapshot of how we're flowing now and make the adjustments that are needed. There's no right, there's no wrong. Just adjust how needed based off what you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. And it's really just taking that one step at a time, and one adjustment at a time to be a better version of yourself. When you start to focus on that, I feel like this education and this information and system can be empowering to someone who has no system that they're utilizing, or a confusing system that they're utilizing or whatever. Having that clarity can be very empowering and can allow you to show up in your max capacity and at your max energy, which that's hopefully everyone's goal here who's watching as a nonprofit or as an authentic entrepreneur, that you're showing up at your best. And I think that this information can definitely help you to show up at that best.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Reggie, for coming on.
Thank you.
And we will see you all. This week is our Flex Week, guys. I'm so excited we started incorporating that. So this week we'll be sharing and posting a couple of things in our group, but we won't have any lives, midweek lives for those of you who are in our Facebook group. If you're not in our Facebook group, you can check out our website, clarkandclark.org, to be able to show that. Reggie's a member of our Facebook group. Thank you. Absolutely. I really appreciate that. For those of you who do not know, not only does our Facebook group provide funding, nonprofit review services to nonprofits, but also a percentage of what's going into the Facebook group, for those of you all who are joined, also goes back to the community, to the domestic violence community. We serve the domestic violence community through empowering them to be able to be self-sufficient through business, through creating nonprofits, through sometimes just working from home. So just so you know, every member of that group also supports that area of the community as well, guys. So if you're not in there, you can check that out on clarkandclark.org. We also have a free checklist that you can check out there. If you're wanting to start a nonprofit, but you don't know where to start or what to do, you can download that as well. So I will see you guys next Saturday. I'll see you all next Saturday live. We have a really, really exciting April calendar coming out this week. So again, if you're on our mailing list, you'll get that April calendar. We're also starting a new group, guys, for minority mentors. So if your business has anything specifically to do with mentorship, like Reggie's does, we're going to be basically helping to match minority mentors specifically together so that we can help to grow that area specifically, and we can have more people who embrace mentorship, because outside of knowing about yourself and how you operate, I think mentorship has been the other number one thing that's been game changing for me. So thanks again, Reggie. We will see you all in the next live.